LEGO Clone Troopers have been around for almost 25 years at this point, and during that time they have become beloved by the community. With that being said, Clone Troopers have also had a lot of highs and lows over the last couple of decades. So in this video, I'm going to break down the complete history of LEGO Clone Troopers. 3 years after the release of The Phantom Menace and the subsequent creation of LEGO Star Wars, we saw our first LEGO clones. Alongside the second installment of the Star Wars prequel trilogy, we saw our debut to Clone Troopers in 2 sets, being the classic, original 2002 Republic Gunship and ATTE. These clones were very different to modern clones that we now know today. First of all, the printing was much simpler, matching the vibe of classic LEGO Star Wars, but we did see something very interesting with the helmets. Similar to Mandalorian helmets at the same time, these Clone Troopers used a unique helmet mold where the front of the visor was cut out. This was very different to modern day where the visor is printed on the helmet, with the cutout allowing you to see the black head underneath acting as the visor. Although these 2 original sets would be the only 2 sets for the next couple of years, including Clone Troopers, 2005, alongside the release of the final prequel Star Wars movie, Revenge of the Sith, would change everything. 2005 is one of the most beloved years of LEGO Star Wars, and it is for 2 key reasons. First of all, as I said before, being the release of Revenge of the Sith, a fan favorite Star Wars movie, as well as the release of more LEGO Clone Troopers. Revenge of the Sith led to the development of the Phase 2 Clone Trooper, obviously with LEGO following in its footsteps. The Phase 2 design was very similar to the Phase 1 we saw earlier in the decade, still having a cutout visor but with a new helmet mold. This was except for one key difference. It's that these Phase 2 troopers led to a lot more customization. Following the diverse lineup of clones we would see in Episode 3, LEGO followed suit, releasing the first different colored clone troopers as well as introducing pauldrons for the first time. And additionally, we would see more clone vehicles, with some notable ones being the ARC 170, Turbo Tank, and AT-AP. And finally, one key set I want to highlight was the first ever Clone Trooper Battle Pack. A seemingly insignificant $10 set at this time, this would open the floodgates to the larger clone army movement, which I will talk about later. Overall, the classic era of Clone Troopers was a great foundation as LEGO continued developing more and more Clone Troopers in the future, with a lot of nostalgia following these sets. With the classic age of LEGO Star Wars being a great introduction to Clone Troopers, the Clone Wars age would take this and expand on it massively, leading to what I would call the golden age of LEGO Clone Troopers. In 2008, the Star Wars The Clone Wars movie was released, leading to a new redesign of the Phase 1 Clone Trooper as well as a huge influx of Clone Wars sets. The Clone Wars movie's animated style led to a brand new animated style of LEGO Clone Trooper and a redesign to the Phase 1 clone, and the outcome was one of the most iconic and classic LEGO Clone Troopers, and is definitely one of my personal favorites. I genuinely love these guys. The animated style also led to a new mold for the Phase 1 clone, still being the one we use today, finally now including the actual printed on visor instead of the cutout. And following the release of the Clone Wars movie, as well as the Clone Wars show, we would see some fan favorite clone sets, with much needed remakes to both the Republic Gunship and ATTE, as well as amazing new other sets like the Republic Attack Shuttle, Clone Turbo Tank, as well as the legendary Republic Dropship with AT-AT. And additionally, during this era, as the Clone Wars show continued to flesh out Clone Troopers, we would see much more customization as well as other variants. Furthermore, we would also see a lot of Phase 1 clone commanders sprinkled out throughout sets, like Captain Rex, Cody, Wolf, and Fox, just to name a couple. And with the development of these Clone Wars style clones, as well as the release of even more clone battle packs, the clone army building phenomenon started to take off. Essentially, this trend would be people would buy as many sets, mainly battle packs, just to get as many clones as they possibly could to build an army. This trend would explode in popularity over the next few years, and it is definitely still a thing today. Be sure to check out my personal clone army video that I dropped a couple weeks ago after this one, but we would see some absolutely massive clone armies, with some notable examples being from Solid Fabric Studios, as well as M&R Productions, who are now very prominent creators in the LEGO Star Wars space. And additionally, at this time, we would see development of clone-based mocks as well as stop motions, which were just great in the LEGO community. And even with the redesign of the Phase 1 helmet, the Phase 2 cutout visor did actually remain a little bit longer until the Clone Troopers transitioned to Phase 2 armor in the show around 2013. And that is finally where we would get the redesigned Phase 2 clone helmet, following in the path of the Phase 1 with the normal printed on visor that you all know today. Throughout the end of this era, we would see many more Phase 2 clones in both the animated as well as the now realistic style, basing them off of Episode 3. The Clone Wars era was a great time to be in the LEGO Star Wars community, as clone troopers and army building and their popularity just overall really exploded, as well as getting a bunch of great clone troopers and vehicles that arguably still hold up today. Really quickly before we move on, I just want to take a second to ask you to subscribe. It's only like 1%, I think, of my viewers that watch my videos are subscribed, and it's free, and these videos take a lot of work. As we return to the golden age of LEGO Star Wars, there's a little bit of overlap with the Clone Wars era, but I'd really start off this era in 2013, where I already talked about this a little bit in the last section, but we would see a mix of Clone Wars sets and realistic sets, with us getting a large Episode 2 based wave in 2013, allowing us to get a realistic redesign of a lot of Phase 1 clones, as well as another return to some fan favorite vehicles with the widely regarded best Republic gunship to date, as well as a very solid ATTE. Personally, I prefer the animated style of the clone troopers we were seeing a little earlier, but this realistic style is definitely accurate to the movies and still looks good, don't get me wrong. But as we began to transition mainly from animated clones to realistic clones, in 2014, similar to the previous year where we got an Episode 2 wave, we would see an Episode 3 wave. With a return to Revenge of the Sith Episode 3, we began to see the peak of LEGO Star Wars clone troopers, seeing some Phase 2 clones in the realistic style, and these are some fan favorites. Notably, the Kashyyyk Troopers and Utapau Trooper battle packs, respectively, were very popular at the time, containing some of the best clone troopers which hold up very well today. Although we didn't see as many large-scale vehicles in 2014, we would still see excellent renditions of sets like the V-Wing AT-AP, alongside the Police Gunship and AV-7 Cannon, both based off of the Clone Wars. And later on in 2016, we would see a new version of the Turbo Tank, with a lot of these sets being great builds that really hold up today, as I've already said, as well as great clone troopers. Although after 2014, there was a significant drop in the quantity of clone trooper sets with the cancellation of the Clone Wars show, and newly focused sets based off of Rebels. We would see a couple sets here and there, but nothing super notable. Moving into the modern era, 2020 marked three key things. First of all, the start of the pandemic. Second, a return to a lot of LEGO clone troopers. And third, a brand new style for clone troopers. With the start of the global pandemic, it brought an influx of new LEGO fans, as well as a huge shift for the LEGO clone in both design and community sentiment. Before we dive into a lot of the main controversies of this era, I want to quickly talk about the new design of the clone troopers. Often dubbed the 2020 style of clone trooper, LEGO overhauled the whole clone trooper design. While previously we would have sets based off of the Clone Wars having an animated style, and the sets based off of the movies having a realistic style, we would see a combination of these with the 2020 style. The armor design was made to look like a mix of both, as well as incorporating a lot more white elements, removing previously colored arms and making them white, as well as replacing black hips with white hips, leading to, in all fairness in my opinion, a pretty clean looking clone trooper. And now with the clone trooper redesign covered, we can talk about one of the most hyped up and influential sets that I know you all have been waiting for me to talk about. This, of course, being the legendary 501st Battle Pack. After a campaign primarily led by M&R Productions, along with the pandemic leading more people to be interested in LEGO, and the final season of the Clone Wars being released, the stage was set, and on April 2nd or something like that, the 501st Battle Pack was released. For months after its release, the 501st Marvel vs. Battle Pack was extremely hard for people to get their hands on, as it was super popular. And as LEGO YouTube grew, clone army building took off again. Looking back on it, there were definitely some major flaws of the set that was overlooked, especially with it being the first $30 battle pack. But at the time, the hype surrounding the set was insane. I mean, personally, I was definitely a fan. I literally bought 30 of these sets. Unfortunately, we would see one of the most controversial events in the LEGO Star Wars community the following year with the release of the UCS gunship. After winning the fan vote, the UCS gunship was released, although not to people's satisfaction, with a bunch of controversy surrounding it, particularly the minifigs. Many wanting a clone pilot, Commander Cody, or Jedi Bob. Instead, we got a clone commander and Mace Windu, which people weren't very excited about. Later on in the designer interview for the set, the designer said this:
one is a clone commander, which also doubles as the pilot of the ship,
as well as saying the set was from the original trilogy, which was obviously just a simple mistake, but it really rubbed fans the wrong way. As well as to rub salt in the wound, they messed up the Republic insignia on the box. But following the UCS gunship in 2022, we would see the best iteration of the ATTE, literally right there, containing the long-awaited Phase 2 Cody. But with the new Cody, there was a new helmet mold released with helmet holes to accommodate Cody's visor. And this is where a lot of stuff started going downhill. First of all, the printing on the 212 helmets got cut off and messed up because of the new helmet mold, as well as because they wanted to accommodate the old visor piece, they placed the helmet holes above where the hole goes in universe, making it so if you didn't have any attachments, it would be this weird double helmet hole. But also technically it's the right place for the visor to go in universe, but that's a conversation for another day, as it's a complex issue. The issue with this was that the new helmet mold, even with clone troopers without attachments, was still being used, making it look really bad. I'll let you make up your own opinion on what you think about helmet holes themselves, but what is really not okay was that it was messing up printing on helmets. Thankfully, I believe that they fixed it now, but that was definitely a problem for a couple years. Following the ATTE, the next 3 years, we would see a solid amount of clone sets. Unfortunately, many of them either had printing issues with the helmet holes, lack of inclusion of cloth camas. Anyway, just a lot of clone troopers being compromised or having other issues. As of most recently, we saw some egregious examples with the $45 327th battle pack, which was ridiculous, as well as the release of the newest Republic clone turbo tank, which is like by far the worst build we've seen, with it being tiny, as well as really fragile and breaking really easily, leading to the turbo tank resistance movement on TikTok led by Broyale Bricks, where people will go around their local Target and hide the turbo tanks so people won't buy them. Turbo tank resistance has my full support, by the way. But that is currently where we stand. A lot of messed up clone troopers, although I do think they're getting better, and just a lot of overpriced sets. I made a whole other video delving into all of the recent clone trooper controversies, like the complete list, which I will link at the end of this video, but I did cover the key points of the current LEGO clone troopers. Some decent sets, some bad sets, some good sets, a lot of bad clones, a few decent clones, and definitely a lot of overpriced sets. LEGO lock in. In conclusion, LEGO clone troopers have been around for a long time, with a lot of highs as well as unfortunately some more recent lows. As you can tell by the creation of this video, as well as my clone army video which I released recently, I'm very passionate about these guys, and I do really hope and I believe that we will see an improvement to clones in the near future, and maybe even bring back some hype into clone army building. If you made it this far into the video, comment down below what your favorite clone trooper is. Thank you for watching, but I did have a great time working on this video. But to check out my personal clone army or the history of all of the controversies, click on one of the two videos on the end screen now.